Okay, this is a video that was put together by a YouTube channel, Rick 88888888. He has a phenomenal channel, and this video, Rick, has changed the way I think about the past and construction. I'm going to be watching the construction and commenting on what it is that I know as a builder, watching men work in 1930 and 1931. It's amazing. Okay, I got to pause this right here. It says they set the first column on April 8th. They started on March 17th. That's 21 days before they were setting a column. And there's no hydraulics anywhere. That digging was done with, I guess, dynamite, picks, shovels, and horses. That's amazing. I guess those that's part of the spread footings. That in some way is reinforcing inside a concrete spread footing under this thing, I guess. Look at those cranes. They had to set those up in 21 days. Look at that. All right, pause that. Are those rocks hand stacked on the backside of that footing? Or is that what they were having to dig in? I have no idea. I can't answer that, but man, those guys are tough. Look at their pants, boys and girls. Those pants are dirty. They don't wash them every night when they get home. That would chase me off right there. I assume those are steel cable lifting straps. I assume. What a beautiful job of putting the color in here these guys did. Wow. Those are some I-beams, so they must be counting on the I-beam for the strength in the concrete that they surround it with to protect it. That's a different footing, but similar for sure. Look at that, with all the pedestrians right downtown. I don't see, the cop is keeping people out of their way. Side passing horse, that's cool. I think that beam is called a Carnegie beam. Yeah, I think that's what they called this. Look at the complexity. Tagline coming in. So I'm going to skip ahead. They've got a bunch of footage about how they made those beams, but just look at that thing. I bet that's real time. Love the hard hat. Okay. So in 1930, blacksmith shops were still everywhere. And so these machinists, these guys working in this fab shop, probably had spent time in a smaller scale blacksmith shop. I don't know, but I had no idea that gang drills like this existed. Look at these machines drilling these holes. Look at the ribbons that are coming out of there. Those things will cut you. He's pouring on coolant, probably just oil. All right, and now they're going to find out if the holes work. Look at that. Looks like a 4-inch thick plate. And there were no welders then, so they're going to be riveting this stuff, so everything has to fit. Look at the spud wrenches in the back, lining up the holes. Everybody's moving like they mean it. That's loud. Dropped in, perfect fit. That's not easy. Now look at this. Look at the flex in that plate. That's got to be a 3 by 30-inch piece of bar stock. Carnegie steel, I think, came into existence like 1880 or something, and this is 50 years later. Look at those lifting hooks, just bent out of strap. Okay, so I've got to just admire the accuracy of those holes. I don't know how much slack they put in there, but as the bar comes down like that, the length changes and the bolt holes still have to line up. Okay, they're upsetting the rivets. They're putting hot round stock. See that? The bar on the left right there is hot. Beautiful job of coloration. And while it's hot, they've got to get it inside that upsetting tool and squish the head on there. See the rivets that are done right in front? That head acts as a nut on a bolt, but the shrinking rivet tightens it up much tighter than you can possibly get it with threads and a nut. I have no idea how much that thing weighs, but it is heavy. Look at that thing. All right, now there's an example. Oh, they're swinging the beam to the upsetting tool. That's a different mechanism. But if you don't get in there while that round stock is hot, it just won't do the same thing. Watch this. Bam! Keep your fingers out of the way. They're sliding the rivets in as they go. Look at them all. I'm going to say millions of rivets. Look at this. You think that's loud? Yes, that's loud. He doesn't care. He does not care. I bet he couldn't hear his grandkids. Now this is some sort of a big milling machine that is machining the ends of those beams flat, very flat. Look at the rivets. I think that whole assembly is called a Carnegie beam. They've got details on that in here, but we're going to jump ahead to the construction here in a second. But just think of that. I assume that wheel, that cutting tool is moving. Okay, there they are. Look at that. All of this work in 410 days. Interesting. Carnegie beam. All right, let me jump forward. So one thing that jumps out at me is how contrived the supervisors are with their straw hats. Look at the beams. That had to be, I don't know how long they've been doing stuff like this, but in 1930 they couldn't have been doing it long. Look at that. The layers he's pointing out. Think of the strength. These guys started animating than poor Walt Disney did. Look at that. Cover plates. Okay. All right, let me skip ahead a little bit and see what happens next. The beauty of the rivets. Okay, now they're swinging it in. Look how heavy that's got to be. That crane has got to be like enough, right? It's got to be stable. What have they? Okay, and it's stable because they've got it on a, yes, look at that cribbing pile. Let me pause that. Those 12 by 12s that are set perpendicular to each other create a footing. They didn't have to pour concrete. They didn't have time or money to pour concrete. They could put a cribbing pile together in a short period of time, and then they braced it back down to the ground because it looks like it's holding up the cranes that are holding up and lifting the whole thing. So fast to set up, good footing, not going to tip over, and you can trust everybody's life to it. That's awesome. Wish I could see the man doing that. Okay, look at that. Look at the mess. Look at the mess. I mean, forming, pouring, digging, shoveling, scraping. Almost no time for site organization, or at least to a modern eye, it looks like chaos. But they built this thing in 410 days. That's amazing. And the cleanup was only as good as it had to be. Look at the staging and the shoring supporting, I guess that's a walkway? Is that a walkway on the far side? You got pedestrians. Okay, it's just a walkway and it's keeping the pedestrians out of the hole. Stairs, hand railings, yay. That's even heavier than the other pick. Look at that. I bet of course that's real time. These must be guy lines that are in the field of view. Beautiful transit. Look at the weight. And he's standing under the load. Boys, what's he doing? Another man, the supervisor ducks under there. He had to. And lowering it in the middle. Look at that thing. You talk about Legos. And all those holes had to be drilled and fit when it got there. No electricity. There's no sign of electricity on that job site. So just the staging, 80% of construction is handling material. This is as good an example of that as I've ever seen. Handling the material, carrying the blueprints, the shop drawings, the bucket full of hammers and spud wrenches on the I-beam. Look at it. Boy, if this doesn't give you the shivers, nothing's going to give you the shivers. Look at the planking they threw up there so they could work and rig the next level of the... Okay, look at the turnbuckle. Look at the turnbuckle in that line for pulling those things plumb. That's what those are. They're giant turnbuckles. And there had to be scaffolding, temporary scaffolding put in there for the guys to rig those braces, those squaring lines. And the cranes come right up through the mess. Look at it. Look at the guys in the background, how tiny they're getting. Look at that. Must be filming from the top of adjacent buildings, I guess. Look at it. How many of us could make it on a job like that today? Look at the guy in the back walking the beams. And they did some version of this on every building there that you see, but not like that. The cranes themselves are riveted together. See the rivets on that boom? I've headed a few rivets. Nothing like these. Man, oh man, who is signaling? There, the man with the hat, with the fedora hat signaling. Get your spud out of there, buddy. Down. Did they line up? Everybody wants to know. Inquiring minds want to know, do the holes line up? Yeah, climbing to the top of the... Look at that. Somebody's got to get up there and unhook. We're still down in the basement. Oh, yeah. 20-pound hammer. They needed a Burke bar, boys. 410 days. Unbelievable. Look at that. Okay, so now they're giving us an artist rendering of where we're getting to. On June 23rd, the 25th floor is reached. June 23rd from March 17th. So now we're getting a slow pan, apparently up 25 floors. So just like modern high-rises, as you're pushing up with the floors, coming in with the flying forms in Las Vegas, I watched them. I never worked on that on the high-rises. But the interior work, the partitions and the wiring and the tenant, everything had to move forward down below while the height is still being established going up, which is its own set of safety concerns. And it looks like we're beginning to see the veneer of the building going on. I don't know what the veneer is. I've never been to New York, but it had to be put there. And you got to hang into space to do it. Look at that. Look at that temporary scaffold that's going up just behind the structural work. I don't know if those are granite slabs. Those of you who are in New York City, will you tell us what the veneer is? I mean, there's glass, there's veneer, there's granite, there's slate. I don't know what it is. But it had to be put there while they were going up. I think there's a railing around there, sort of. Man. Yeah, that doesn't look sketchy, does it? He's got a roof over his head, though. Look at that. They've got a lumber roof over the top. Now, there's a guy working on what is the roof for the walkway below, doing something inside of the structural work. No rail there. See that? 25 floors. Swinging something. Okay, there's the veneer. I'm looking at something that covers the outside. Oh, man. Oh, look at that. It's a sheath that's... Holy smokes. Some kind of a slip fit. Hang over the edge, buddy. I don't know if I already said this, but only 5 deaths. Only 5. Too many. Tragic. Only 5. Okay, masonry. The veneer is block or brick. Look at that crew. Wow. How many millions of bricks. And their white coveralls. Everybody wearing a hat. There's the big cheese hanging on. Everybody else is working with 2 hands. Then he's standing there hanging on to a column. Hurry up, he says. Gosh. Immigrants, Italians, Irishmen, all the rest. Happy to be working, making money. Boy, let me compliment Rick on his color again. It just brings it to life. Yeah, hang on, bud. They can see their breath. That's a cold morning. What's that windlass doing? Probably raising up bricks or something. Feeding slack, climbing to the top. This makes me feel like a little boy. Look at that. Leaning in. Look at that. Look at that. Out comes a spud wrench. Line up the holes. Guy jumps on the end of the beam. Okay, he's signaling the crane. Right on. He'd been signaling. Boots. Look at that. How many men can you put on a line? No, that's not high drama, is it? All right, so they're letting, it looks like 6 men down, 4 men at the end of the day. Boss has a hold of the tagline. Gutsy of him. Man, oh man. In the logging around here, the high lead industry, this is called riding the rigging. I've done that. Those guys are gonna start Hollywooding a little. Oh man. All right. Oh, all right. All right, now that, see that? All I can guess is if that's just a detail of a 45-degree brace coming up through the structure, through the floor where they're working. It looks like you can see mortar that's dried, you know, the bones from the masonry that's going on. And then you're looking down a little lower over here on the right to just a pile of rigging. There's hooks, there's a block. Looks like maybe a spud wrench laying there. Man, at 410 days, you don't have time for niceties. All right, let's roll this. All right, we got the brace. All right, setting another giant I-beam. See that? You got a line coming back, pulling a side haul on that under his hand. I don't know if that's just hand power or with a winch. Unhooked. Pay attention. All right, so now we get some finish. Some finish down at the bottom. There's one of those metal sheets. Empire State. Wow. The interior work had to be started down there. That scaffolding looks better than the other stuff. Okay, yeah, it looks like their technology improved for staging and scaffolding. Man. If there are any mistakes down in the foundation, they multiply, right? By the time you get up there, it's unmanageable. And there's the stars and stripes, and I don't know what that is. Maybe that's a contractor. Dominating the skyline. strong enough for King Kong himself. So glazing on that, think of setting the glass in there. Unbelievable. And the idea that all of this was drawn with pen and ink, with pencil and paper and erasers and slide rules. All right, this must be an artistic, main building completed September 19th, 85 stories. April, May, June, July, August, September, 6 months. Unbelievable. 5 deaths. So this must be getting up to the top of the world. I haven't seen an extension cord. 85 floors, what is that, 850 feet? I wonder how long until the pedestrian crowds thinned out and it became commonplace. Man, oh man. I've been told, and you probably have too, that there were a lot of American Indians, Native Americans that had this high wire work. Exceptional balance, exceptional courage. Probably the same planks that they used down in the foundation. My goodness. Think of the lump in your throat or the ache in your stomach when you'd walk up there in the morning and know that you were going to be going up to the top to set that stuff in place. And you did it. My gosh. As I watch this, there's just things in my brain that some of them aren't even articulated, but some of the things that I can articulate, and I've already touched on the idea of risk, but the risk went all the way back to the entrepreneurs, the engineers, the people who fronted the money, who committed themselves to design. There's risk in that. Of course, it's a completely different order of magnitude, the risk of the guys walking those I-beams and swinging those loads. And the risk of just repetitive injury, you drop a 12 by 12, 20 feet long, if it comes down too soon and lands on your instep, well, you're lame for the rest of your life. And like I mentioned, 5 of them didn't come home. And yet, a project like this is going to stand for, well, at this point, 94 years, soon to be 100 years. Maybe it'll make several hundred years. Requires the willingness to take risk. Life itself demands risk. Now, I'm thankful that my life has never demanded these levels of risk, but I admire them for that. The risk, I think, must have been perceived as being manageable because of the level of organization. In the middle of the chaos, from the sidelines, it looks like random, insane actions, and yet it was meticulously organized so they could do that in that period of time. The proof is in the productivity. The proof of organization is in productivity, right? And yet, at the foundation of it was a willingness to be a team, to commit your welfare, to risk your life on the actions of other people that you knew were functioning as part of the same team. Were there fist fights? Yes. Were there firings? Yes. Were there delayed deliveries? Of course there were. And however much I subscribe to the notion of the rugged individualist, of the one man against the world, however much I subscribe to that, I think I subscribe more deeply to the notion of people coming together and working for the benefit of everybody. So that's what we've seen here. And I appreciate so much Rick, 88888888, his effort to make something beautiful so that we all can look at this and maybe think about risk and reward, contributions to the people around us, and being willing to work as a team. If you haven't gotten good at that yet, you probably ought to work on that. Another thing that comes to me, that building that building, I'm going to speculate, was in its own way the same kind of an accomplishment as going to the moon was for the Apollo project. Nobody had done anything like this, and it didn't stop them from having the confidence that they could do it. Now, it took almost $41 million to do that then. I don't know what that is in today's numbers. You guys can calculate that for me. It's a lot. It took a lot of money to do that. And so that necessarily means that a project like this is not within the grasp of somebody like you and me. But there are things that might be within our grasp that we might think are too much. We might think they're just too much. Well, maybe they're not. Maybe we can look at accomplishments of other men in other places that are off of any chart and then scale that back to our world and realize that every worthwhile thing is sort of created in our imagination and in our heart. It's created spiritually, if you will, before it manifests in the real world. And so maybe we should spend a little more time, Rudyard Kipling. Can you dream and not make dreams your master? We don't dream about these things just for the sake of dreaming, but maybe we ought to spend a little more time dreaming about doing something bigger than we've done before. And then the last thing is this. Let's stop making the mistake of overlooking the foundations that have been put in place for us to build on. All the way back to the first builders, and from them to today. Everything that I've ever built was made possible by foundations that other people had built for me. My mom and dad, their mom and dad, the people who put in the infrastructure where I was living. It's a mistake to think that we can accomplish anything worthwhile and not take a moment to credit the people that made those accomplishments reachable. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed getting a look at this accomplishment. 41 million bucks, 410 days in the middle of downtown New York City, in spite of everything, coming out of World War I, finding our feet, men providing for their families. How I admire them. Thanks for watching Essential Craftsman, and keep up the good work.